angels, it's Hailey Reese, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am so very grateful that you are here, and I really and truly do hope, as always, that you're having an absolutely incredible morning, afternoon, or night, whatever it is for you when this video finally reaches you. Today's video is one that I am so excited to get into with you guys because I have been researching this for days, and when I say that I have come up with more questions than answers, that is absolutely not at all an exaggeration. Today, we are once again diving into some of the whispers and secrets across the world, pertaining to, more specifically, glitches in our matrix, lapses or jumps of time in timelines, and experiences that can't be explained, but furthermore, are seeming to become silenced. Now, as I just said, I've been researching this for days, and with that comes a little bit of a fear in talking about something that so many have deemed dangerous to speak about. So with that being said, before we explore today's video and dive even deeper, I do just want to take a moment to say that this video is absolutely for entertainment purposes. These are just people's experiences online. I can neither confirm nor deny the validity of these experiences. I can only share them here with you, where you're able to form your own opinions and compare it to experiences that you may or may not have already had or will have within your lifetime. Again, there are so many people talking about this, and the more that people talk about it, the more that they say this needs to be kept a secret. Now, if you've been here on my channel recently, you would know that we've been diving into so many secrets of our world, the spiritual realms, and the unknown, and today's video is no exception. So if you guys enjoyed today's video and you enjoy this type of content, make sure to go ahead and click that subscribe button, as I am uploading a new video every single day, and this is only the beginning. But let's get into yet another episode in this unexplainable, unbelievable series. So as we've discussed in previous videos, I'm sure at one point or another, so many of us have experienced some sort of time slip or warping of time. Maybe it's like an hour of time just seems to disappear without any explanation. Perhaps you've traveled a certain distance that doesn't align with the time on your clock. Perhaps there's a memory that you have that no longer matches what you're being told is in fact reality. Or perhaps there's even just a moment that feels as though it's been copied and pasted from another life. You may feel crazy if you experience these things, but you are definitely not alone. More and more stories are surfacing from all across the world of people experiencing these glitches and this warping of what we are told to be our reality. And according to this group online, is being covered up and written over. From these dreams that seemingly glitch like some sort of a broken code to these real world experiences that people are becoming more and more terrified to speak out about. It seems as though these are not just stories, but instead are proving to be some sort of timeline jumps, fractures in a reality that really, once you start looking deeper into, you can no longer unsee or ever see in the way you once did again. We're going to dig deeper today into what we've been told and taught to be true, because if these stories are in fact true and aren't just made up to warp your mind or scare you online, then it raises an even darker question. We then have to ask ourselves, why are these stories being dismissed, buried, or silenced? I mean, I have a couple of theories, but I'm wondering by the end of today's video what it is that you think. But let's just get into it, because again, the more and more you dig, the more questions you're left with instead of answers. So we're going to start out by talking about this one particular girl, and I'm going to just refer to her as the girl for the sake of keeping herself anonymous. So many people in these groups, guys, if you dig deeper through these forums, talk about how they want to remain anonymous. They don't want to bring any attention to their lives any more than has already been brought to their lives from these experiences. And so this girl begins talking about her particular experience with this time warp and this glitch. And the very first thing that she talks about that I think is really, really important for us to try to understand what's going on is the fact that it seemed as though it was a normal day, but there was one thing that really stood out to her. On this particular day, she had a feeling that was very much present that she hadn't really felt since she was a kid. And the only way that she can describe this feeling is kind of as an all-knowing. She felt as though she could foresee everything that was happening in the day. She knew the answers to her boss's questions the moment that they were proposed to her or presented to her. And these were things that she hadn't been prepped on or briefed on, and suddenly she just knew everything. Now, most of us would probably go and play the lottery if we had a day like this, but she felt this nostalgic feeling of familiarity. Because when she was a little girl, she would often get this feeling of all-knowing, and she would be able to predict a series of events throughout her day on any particular day where she felt like this. Throughout these days, she said that she would suddenly have this, again, all-knowing feeling. The questions that her teachers would ask, she would have the answers to, even if they were far beyond her years or any curriculum she'd studied. When her parents would be making dinner, she would suddenly announce that somebody was going to show up, and sure enough, they would. Or she would talk about some really extreme events in her life that would suddenly happen, no matter how strange or unbelievable it would seem prior to the event actually taking place. Now, one thing that she remembered from her childhood, especially now that she's been kind of sifting through her life and memories, was that during this period of her all-knowing, she'd been pulled into a lot of special rooms in her life, specifically special rooms in her school. She'd been told that she was quite smart and that they wanted to get to know her a little bit better. And so what she assumed to be these formally dressed teachers would sit down and ask her a series of some unusual and some practical questions, and they would write down all of her answers. She specifically remembers seeing people with clipboards in the room that were focusing very intently on her, almost as if they were studying her. As a kid, she felt like it was some sort of a test that she hadn't prepared for. But every single time that she would leave the testing room, they seemed more and more pleased. Over time, she did remember one of her teachers pulling her aside and telling her to be careful about talking about her all-knowing, these things that would come to her so naturally. And over the years, as she got older, this all-knowing kind of, went away, and her memories became a little more foggy around it. But it became something that she would think about a lot throughout this day as she's having this all-knowing feeling again. Now, I want to take a moment and just interrupt my own story for a second here, because I think it's really important to think about what this could mean as far as the testing goes. I actually, too, have memories of being pulled into specific rooms and being questioned about certain things, being told that I was quite smart, that I was brilliant, that I was beyond my years. And there were other students that I knew who were also pulled into similar rooms and were told very similar things. I just thought that it was showing some sort of favoritism, but what's interesting as I've dug deeper into these types of cases is the amount of people who have come forward saying that they were very gifted, both spiritually and academically, and that they too were pulled into rooms where these formally dressed individuals were quizzing them and questioning them and asking them about their gifts and their all-knowing. They may not all call it this all-knowing thing, but they all kind of had a very similar experience. And I find it interesting as we dig deeper into some theories, just wondering who these people were and how they find these gifted children. It's another video in and of itself, and we have talked about it a lot here on my channel, but children are closer to the other realm, and children, being so pure and open, frequently have a lot more spiritual or paranormal or unexplainable experiences. So I did find this detail very interesting, especially considering what we would learn later, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's jump back again. So on this particular day, she just remembers everything feeling off, and once again, she's predicting all of these strange things that she shouldn't be able to foresee are coming to her like these premonitions. She remembers having a really, really bad headache when she gets home from work that night, and she goes right to sleep. And that is where the strange experience truly begins. She says that she remembers feeling like she'd actually woken up in the morning, but she begins walking out of her apartment and down the hall, and she's suddenly in the world. She feels as though it is a dream because it feels very strange, but there's oddly familiar things in this dreamlike space. She remembers looking down at the watch that she was wearing in the dream and realizing that she can actually see the time. And the time that she reads on her watch is 6:23 p.m. She continues on throughout the dream and very strange things are happening. She even mentions that some very specific, very personal things that she wasn't even comfortable sharing in the forum started happening in the dream, and it seemed very eerie, like she was seeing something that she shouldn't be seeing. And as she continues on through the dream, she recognizes that the clock up on this big building in the center of the town reads 3:05 a.m. She remembers it very, very specifically, and she really takes in the time. For some reason, it's important to her. She all of a sudden hears a voice from behind her say, she notices the time. And that's when she spins around very quickly and sees a man in a very strange outfit with a very, very memorable hat staring right at her with 3 other people behind him, 2 of which had clipboards in their hands. And they're watching her, recognizing the clock saying 3:05 a.m. She says that she feels like she shouldn't be here for some reason. She suddenly feels completely uncomfortable and she freezes. She ends up waking up from this dream and realizes that the clock right next to her bed reads 6:23 a.m. So again, just a quick recap. In the dreamlike space, she sees 6:23 p.m. on the clock, and then she wakes up at 6:23 a.m. She says she feels like the dream was so real and she feels very off and again has this weird all-knowing feeling. And as she goes on throughout the day, she's going towards where a bus stop is and she recognizes a bus that looks very, very strange. In this bus, it seems like every single person is frozen in some way and it's almost as if they're soulless. She said the people are looking all at their phones and not moving and that the bus driver doesn't even seem real. At this moment, she realizes that the entire area around her feels all too quiet, that all of the cars have paused, and she remembers looking down at her phone and realizing that it is exactly 3:05 p.m. So again, in the dream, she sees 3:05 a.m., but it is now 3:05 p.m. As she looks back up from looking at the time on her phone, she realizes that everything is back to moving, and standing across the street from her is a man looking at her in a very, very perplexed and awkward and uncomfortable way. And that was when she realizes it is the man from her dream. She continues to have these strange dreams, and she starts to recognize what she claims to be these breaks in our world and the illusion surrounding us. And she starts to feel like she is going crazy. At one point, she even confides in one of her coworkers and they talk all about this and they give her some advice and they tell her that she's probably not sleeping enough, she's overworking herself, get some more rest, but she knows that something is wrong as she starts digging down these forums. She ends up finding a bunch of glitch in the matrix experiences, a bunch of creepy stories online, and then she finds one where the person describes the man that she saw in such detail she knew he had to have seen them. And that is where they tell her or whoever stumbled across the forum to go on the dark web and go to this specific area, this specific, forum. I don't even know how they described it, but to go to this space on the dark web where they're all talking about it. And there she finds thousands of other people who have seen the man, who have seen the warpings in our reality and have seen terrifying things happening. But more specifically, they're seeing in these dreams the exact times. So let's talk about this for a minute because we've talked a lot about this before, but there are many people who say that we shouldn't be able to see the time whatsoever in our dreams. It's not really something that we naturally do or easily do as human beings. So when you see the clear time in your dream, in any dream really, or you're able to predict some really strange reality accurately in a dream where you've seen the time, it becomes especially and undeniably unusual. Basically, the part of our brain that handles logical processing and details like reading numbers, interpreting symbols, and tracking time is dialed way down whenever we are dreaming. So when we're asleep, especially in the REM cycle, the prefrontal cortex is much less active, and because of this, your brain can't reliably generate or maintain fixed visual details. So what this means is that if you're trying to look at or for a clock in your dreams, the numbers would likely shift, blur, change, or even just disappear every single time that you're looking at them. or looking for them. So it's not even necessarily so much so that the clocks never appear in dreams. It's just more so that the brain's reduced ability to create stable and logical information makes timekeeping nearly impossible, and therefore it is very rare in a dream. So from a spiritual perspective, being able to clearly see the time in a dream is definitely viewed as unusual. We know that dreams and like the dreamland space is a space where normal and physical world rules don't usually apply. Dreams are thought to exist outside of linear time and function instead as this intuitive, symbolic, and timeless realm. Also, another thing that we always have to talk about in videos like this is the fact that time doesn't actually exist. It's a man-made measurement. Time, the way that we perceive it and track it, is not really what time is, which is why there's a real difficulty at lining up time from the spiritual realms to here. It's another reason why when you're in the dreamland, or specifically when you're astral projecting to other realms or dream spaces, you're never really supposed to mention anything to do with time, asking about the time, or looking for the time, because this is a very clear indicator that you are a soul outside of your body, as it is a earthly measurement of time, looking at the time, checking the time, man-made earthly experience. And if you're in a dark or low vibrational space, these spirits, entities, whatever you want to call them, may recognize that there is an unoccupied vessel back on Earth. But that's another video in and of itself once again. Regardless, though, when somebody sees this precise and fixed time on a clock in a dream, it can feel especially eerie, because that would suggest that something is thinning the line between the dream world and the waking world. This could lead us to assume that the dream is more than just imagination, but instead perhaps a message, warning, or even a nudge from the other realms that they're trying to draw attention. So it is bizarre that all of these people are truly able to see the time. They begin to recognize that time, not just in their dream space, but also in the real world, and the time is accompanied by some sort of a glitch, and also followed by this man who begins to follow you and observe what it is that you're doing. Here's where things get really, really effing creepy, guys, okay? These people start talking about how it all starts by being noticed by this man. He notices you either in the dream space or the real world, but eventually you correlate that he is in both the dream space and the real world. After you've made this correlation, very soon you may be visited by these people, especially if you start sharing online your experiences, telling you to stop talking about it. They'll explain that the world isn't ready to hear it, and the consequence is that if you do continue to talk about it, you may be deemed or viewed as crazy. These people say at first they don't take it too serious, but over time they begin to feel very watched, unsettled, and uncomfortable, and they begin to slowly silence themselves. Even stranger, they talk about one member who was part of this forum who was so heavy and adamant on exposing this and sharing the truth that our world is an illusion, and how one day he just disappeared, and none of them were going to let it go until suddenly he popped back up, said he made it all up to leave him alone, leave him out of it, and he won't be visiting again. But his close friends online said that was not him, and that he had actually specifically said, if I ever say that this isn't real, don't trust it. They want to silence me. But then it gets even weirder, you guys, because as I'm sure you could assume by what I told you earlier, all of these people also had some sort of an all-knowing and were also pulled into separate rooms as kids, or questioned by certain people, or told in certain professional settings that they're special and they've had their brain picked at, and people just want to get to know them more, get to know how they know things. So it really makes you wonder, are these insanely gifted people that may or may not be waking up and are now noticing these glitches, or some of them have thought, are they some sort of an experiment? I mean, they were all talked to as kids. They were all, questioned about this gift that they all seem to have, again, both spiritually and academically. And then suddenly all at once they're seeing these people with clipboards in a dreamlike space, and the times are lining up. But if it were some sort of an experiment, then why would they not want to allow them to talk about it with one another? Wouldn't that be interesting for them to study? I mean, I don't know. I would find it pretty interesting. Here's where things get even weirder. The girl that I was talking about at the start of this story explains that she feels like she's been jumping timelines every single time she wakes up. Because remember how I told you guys that she had confided in a friend, and said friend, or coworker, sorry, had basically like tried to reassure her and talk her down? Well, at a later date, she finally goes to talk to her friend again, and the friend has zero memory of the conversation. So she starts taking almost her own little mental log of all the things that she knows to be true, and little details almost every time that she's waking up are changing. And one person even wrote in the group that they're afraid one day they'll wake up and they won't even have the group accessible anymore, that they won't even be able to find it because that group is their only sense of you're not crazy. This is really happening to you and you aren't alone. So what on earth do you guys think is going on here? I don't know about you, but it gives me absolute chills to imagine. And again, it can't be a coincidence when so many people are talking about it. But it's one of those things that they even say, people post about it and it gets taken down. People post about it and it seemingly disappears. They have no idea how or why. So what do you think is going on? Do you personally think that there really is something going on, something that they're trying to silence and bury? Or do you think this is just yet another creepy online legend or tale meant to scare you or get you thinking? I would love nothing more than to hear all of your thoughts, opinions, and theories down below. For me personally, I don't believe in coincidences, and I think that this is one I'm going to keep digging even further down. So if you guys would like a part 2 to today's video, make sure to let me know, or if there's any other subjects like this that you want to see me explore more, let me know too. Again, I love looking into this stuff, and I love to be the one to bring it to you guys. So I really do hope that you guys enjoyed today's video as much as I enjoyed making it and talking about it. Again, there could be a part 2. There is so much more to this. But that is all I've got for you today. If you guys are new to my channel, or you are just not yet subscribed, but you enjoy my content, I would appreciate it more than you would ever know if you go ahead and click that subscribe button. And please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness. And until tomorrow, I love you. Bye, guys.